there. You ready?
Unopposed, so.
I'm ready.
Okay, you still got a
And
minute.
so when's the end of your term, the end of the year?
You ready? Okay.
Darn it. Yeah. Right. I don't know her either. Yeah, that's taking Debbie's seat. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I know. Were you part of kind of that?
Yeah, sure, man. Let me just go
When
talk to
the infighting was going on? Yeah. Yeah.
Bro, I didn't even know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Can't imagine what would have been. Right. That's true.
Good evening. It's 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting November 12th, 2024 to order. And Council Cantu, will you please lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Counselor Cornwell,
Present.
Counselor Cabrales,
Here.
Counselor Schaub,
Here.
Counselor Wilk, Counselor Cantu,
Here.
Counselor Morris,
I'm here.
Mayor Lonergan.
Here. Thank you. We have a few announcements. City Hall and the library will be closed November 28th and the 29th for Thanksgiving holiday. The Aquatic Center will be closed November 28th only and open regular hours on November 29th. Transit services will be closed on the 28th and will run holiday hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on November 29th. And it's the season. We will have a mayor's tree lighting December 1st from 4 to 7 down at the Woodburn downtown plaza. We'll have the tree lighting, and I understand Santa, if everyone's good, will show up and show us a good time at his workshop at the Woodburn Library. The City Council meeting scheduled for November 24th of 2024 has been canceled. We will have just one meeting in December, like we have just one meeting in November. Next meeting will be December 9th, and that'll be the only meeting we have in December. It's not on here, but I wanted to make a mention of the bond measure that did not pass, unfortunately. The city, on their behalf, did a lot of work getting that together, working on a plan for renovation of the pool and a community center. I'm very appreciative of the city's efforts and all those involved. And the Political Action Committee also did a very good job carrying it on the last several weeks. A lot of effort and a lot of support went into that from a lot of people in town. Unfortunately, not a lot of votes. But that's how things go, and we will continue to look at it right now. We are backing up a little bit and looking at different options and seeing where we go. And we'll soon have announcements out in the next several days on our plan of attack and what's going on. On behalf of that, the city has been planning, this is not just a renovation of adding a new community center, it also is renovation of Settlemyre Park. And the city, with the council, has put a team together that has been looking and working on trying to get some federal funding to help with the cost of improvements at Settlemyre. On that behalf, we at one time got $1.5 million earmarked funds from Representative Salinas several months ago. That has not been voted on yet by the Appropriations Committee, but before it got there, it was cut in half to $850,000. It behooves the city to do what we can to try and save that and keep that for Settlemyre Park, and with that in mind, we've put this team together that is going to go back to Washington, D.C. We have a meeting scheduled with Representative Salinas, with Senator Merkley, who currently is head of the Appropriations Committee, and they will be voting on this sometime by the end of the year. We're hoping to ensure we get that $850,000 and hopefully look at some additional funding on top of that. So next week, this team will be going back to DC on behalf of the city to work with both congresspeople and then hand deliver some letters to the Appropriations Committee on behalf of the city of Woodburn, trying to ensure that. So I am appreciative of the city of taking that forward step, and hope for the best by going back there and seeing what we can do for the future. So, moving on, we do have proclamation on November Small Business Month, which I've asked Councilor Cornwell to please cover and read.
Proclamation, November 2024, Small Business Month. Whereas the City of Woodburn, Oregon celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And whereas, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 33.3 million small businesses in the United States that employ more than 59 million people. And whereas small businesses employ 45.9% of all private sector businesses with employees in the United States, and whereas an average 33% of consumers' holiday shopping will be done at small, independently owned retailers and restaurants, and whereas over a quarter, 27.3% of all firms are family-owned businesses. Whereas Woodburn, Oregon supports 80+ small businesses that create local jobs, boost our economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. And whereas advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the country have endorsed this Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now therefore, I, Frank Lonergan, Mayor of the City of Woodburn, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2024 as Small Business Month, and encourage the members of our community to support small businesses and merchants during the month of November and November 30th for Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. In witness whereof, I hereto to my hand and cause the seal of the City of Woodburn, Oregon, to be fixed this 12th day of November, 2024.
Thank you, Councilor. And I second that. The small business is one of the backbones of our economy, and I strongly support small business. A lot of people on the council here have been involved with small businesses, and I myself included, and totally respect that and wish them all the best. When I'm saying that, I'm going to say shop local. We have the privilege tonight of recognizing a couple people that have gone above and beyond their normal job assignment with the city. Both people have excelled in their positions, and we have we're going to take a few moments to honor them. The first is Pavel Anvalov. Almost got that. Invite you to come up, and Melissa has some words to say.
Thank you. Go here? Okay. Do you want to pull your chair? All right. It is my pleasure to congratulate Pavel Amflofiev on completing and passing the ICC Fire Life Safety Certification. This is truly a milestone, and it speaks not only to the dedication of his craft, but also to his commitment to the to the safety and well-being of our community. Specifically, this certification will support the department with our influx of commercial and multifamily project plan reviews. Pavel's no stranger to hard work and dedication. He's a proud local resident of Woodburn who grew up with the values of the land and hardworking spirit of farming. From a young age, Pavel has drawn to working with his hands, crafting and building. skills that would later guide his professional journey. As a teen and young adult, he honed those skills in construction. He specialized in framing houses. It was clear early on that Pavel had an eye for detail and a passion for making things strong, safe, and well-built. When the construction industry faced a downturn, Pavel made his decision to pivot. He enrolled in school to become a city inspector and plans examiner. This shift in career path not only demonstrates resilience, but also an unwavering commitment to learning and growth. Pavel was hired as an inspector at the city of Corvallis in 2011 before returning to his hometown of Woodburn in 2018 to continue his passion in building safety as a building inspector plans examiner too. Since 2018, Pavel has been an essential part of our community development team, as well as serving on the city's safety committee and consistently striving and teaching Woodburn staff the importance of safe buildings. One of the core beliefs that drives Pavel is that if a building is safe, then people will be safe in the building. It's this philosophy that has guided his work, ensuring the safety of everyone who's entered buildings he has inspected. In fact, it's this same mindset that has driven Pavel to always aim higher and achieve more. Pavel's mantra, if you can do it, then I can. It serves as an inspiration to all of us, reminding us that with hard work and determination, we too can overcome any challenge in our path. We are very fortunate to have Pavel in our community, someone who not only brings expertise and skills to their job, but also cares deeply about the safety of our residents. Today, we celebrate not just a certificate, but a career built on years of hard work, learning, and dedication to keeping us all safe. So I'd like to say congratulations, Pavel Amfilofiev, on this well-deserved accomplishment. We're all proud to have you on our team and grateful for all you do in Woodburn. So here's to many more years of success and service. Thank you.
Yeah, the city of Woodburn, we are honored that you're a part of our city. Thank you so much. And I know this is not an easy test to go through.
Nope,
What do you think?
I've been after it since 2011.
Really? Well, congratulations, and like Melissa said, thank you so much for being part of Woodburn.
Thank you for making it happen.
Yeah,
Everyone.
get the family.
Oh, yeah, his kids.
Oh yeah, can we get his kids in?
Yeah.
Maybe you and your kids.
Yeah.
All right, okay. 1, 2, 3, smile, there we go. Oh, good picture.
So the second person that we're going to recognize and honor is someone that also has given a lot above and beyond, and recently has finished some accreditations without telling the rest of the city that that this happened. So this is for Heather Pearson. MMC of the City of Woodburn has earned the designation of Master Municipal Clerk, which is awarded by the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. The IIMC grants the MMC designation only to municipal clerks who complete demanding education requirements and have a record of significant contributions to their local government, the community, and the state, which Heather has many of these. The International Institute of Municipal Clerks, founded in 1947, has 14,000 members throughout the United States, Canada, and 15 other countries. And the mission of this global nonprofit corporation is to enhance the educational opportunities and professional developments of its diverse membership. In light of the speed and drastic nature of change these days, the lifelong learning is not only desirable, it is necessary for all in local government to keep pace with the growing demands and changing needs of the citizens we serve. Your city can take immense pride in Heather's educational accomplishments and the achievement of this milestone. So on behalf of the IIMC Board of Directors, I am honored to endorse the conferring of MMC to Heather M. Pearson, MMC of the City of Woodburn. We share your pride in this achievement, and we applaud your support of the role Heather plays in your city. Sincerely, Lisa Garcia, President of the Education Department for IIMC. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
so you didn't tell us. Why didn't you tell us you've been going through this? That's what I thought.
This is the exact reason.
This is what happens when they send us the email.
The president contacted me, and it is with great pleasure. Thank you for all you do, and you get your picture.
Good to hear.
Alrighty, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
This shows what great people we have working for the City of Woodburn. We're very proud that you both are part of our community. And so really thank you both very much. So we do have some work to do. Next up is we have a report, a presentation from PFM, Quarterly Investment Report, which looks like some more good news.
We're still getting a good return on our investment. Mayor, members of the City Council, Tony Turley, the Finance Director. I'm here to introduce Lauren as the PFM Asset Management Manager over our portfolio and have her give us an economic update and go over our report and answer questions. Lauren, I'll turn the time over to you.
You're muted. or
Lauren,
you-
we can't hear you.
No.
Not yet.
Still no.
There.
There you are.
Now?
Yep.
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you. Wonderful to see you, and it was wonderful being with you in person back in August. Hard to believe it's been 3 months since I saw you in person. A lot has happened since the last time I saw you, and we'll start on page 5 of your packet, going through some economic information before I get into the specifics of your portfolio and how we navigated the recent economic data and positioned the portfolio. So on page 5 of your packet, just taking a very brief economic overview, the economy still remained very resilient. And as we've talked about a couple of times over the last 1.5 or 2 years, the Federal Reserve has been trying to engineer a soft landing to avoid a recession and maintain strong economic growth while also helping to keep down inflation. And, you know, for the most part, we think that that has transpired. If you look here on, again, on page 5, unemployment rate has been at fairly, low historical levels, 4.2% back in August of 2024, 4.1% unemployment rate today. Another good measure is you look at overall growth in the United States as measured by gross domestic product, which is the measure of all goods and services produced in the economy. For the second quarter, we were at 3%, and most recently, just updated through the third quarter of 2024, 2.8%. So still very positive in terms of economic growth. Consumers are still spending quite an amount, and we're heading into the holiday season, so we expect consumer spending to continue. And the big number has been, of course, inflation over the last couple of years since the pandemic. So inflation hit a high level in 2020 of 9%, in 2021 of 9%, and has since come down. That has been monitored by the Federal Reserve at a very close level. We are now down to about 2.2%. As in terms of a measure of inflation that the Federal Reserve is really looking at as they evaluate whether or not to continue to maintain a federal funds rate at 5% or start lowering it. And because of the strong economic data and the lower inflation numbers that they saw in the third quarter of 2024, the Federal Reserve made the decision in September to lower that overnight Fed funds rate by 50 basis points, which is equal to 0.5%. So that moved the federal funds target rate down to 4.75 to 5%. And that's significant because we were at those high levels of 5.5% for over 3 years. So that had an impact on borrowing, it had an impact on our mortgage rates, so really affected consumer pocketbooks and wallets. So we're starting to see that interest rate come down, and actually most recently this week, we saw the Federal Reserve take another quarter percent off of that Fed funds rate. So now that we're at about 4.5 to 4.75%. So we're starting to see, that headline number come down, which again will be favorable to for borrowing purposes as we move forward, which will also help to keep the economy at a steady level, which is what the Federal Reserve is attempting to do. As I continue to mention, a soft landing is like you're landing a plane, making sure that you're, keeping both wings steady and, engineering something that would be considered to be very favorable to the consumer as well as to the economy. If we turn to page 6 in your packet, I will talk about the impact on interest rates, because this will lead us into a discussion about the city's investment portfolio. So if we look here on page 6, this looks at U.S. Treasury note yields, and specifically I'm looking at that upper right-hand chart called the U.S. Treasury yield curve chart. So there's actually 3 curves in this chart as represented by different points in time. So the yellow dotted line represents where interest rates or U.S. Treasury yields were on September 30th for a range of maturities ranging from 3 months all the way out to 30 years. That middle line, as represented by a dotted blue line, is where U.S. Treasury yields were as of June 30th. And then fairly recent September 30th, as noted in the light blue. So you can see interest rates fell pretty significantly over the last 3 months. In fact, if you look at the lower left-hand side, you can see just the magnitude in which interest rates fell over this last quarter. And I'm looking at the 2-year in particular, the 2-year Treasury note, because that fell about 1.1% in just a 3-month period of time. And the reason why I say this is significant because there is an inverse relationship between fixed income yields and prices. So when yields come down, prices increase. So the value of the city's investments that have been held through this 3-month time period, that value of those securities has increased. So it's continued to be a benefit, and thanks to the council, who's continued to maintain a steady course of investing, as well as to staff, you've maintained a diversified portfolio that has allowed you to capture these higher yields. And so because interest rates are starting to come down, the value of the holdings in your portfolio are going to continue to appreciate as yields continue to fall. And that leads us into the next page I'm going to turn our attention to, which will be we'll go to page 14 in your packet. So as I talk about the value of your holdings, the page on portfolio performance shows what I am talking about. So the portfolio had a return, an unannualized return of 2.4% for the quarter, as compared to the benchmark, about flat to the benchmark, which is a 0 to 3 year U.S. Treasury index of 2.46%. If you annualize that 2% number, if you just back of the envelope multiply it by 4 quarters, that's over an 8% return just for that quarter. And then for this last year, for the period ended September 30th, the portfolio returned over 6%, which is pretty significant for a fixed income portfolio. And I'm going to back us up and then and open it up for questions, but I'm going to back us up to page 11 in your packet to show the diversification of the portfolio and how the funds are invested in compliance with Oregon revised statutes, as well as the city's investment policy. So the portfolio has an average maturity or duration of about 1.4 years, so almost 1.5 years. And you can see on the right-hand side where it says that pie chart, the sector allocation, a very diversified portfolio, predominantly government securities, U.S. Treasuries and federal agencies, with very high quality corporate notes as well as commercial paper, which are just short-term obligations of corporations. The lower left-hand side shows you, that lower left-hand chart, the pie chart shows a very high credit quality portfolio, and the lower right-hand chart shows you how we have the portfolio invested relative to the benchmark. So we have a little bit more in that 1 to 2 year area in terms of maturity, because we think that there's much more value there relative to the market. But we are going to continue to maintain the course. There was a significant event, of course, that happened over the last week in terms of the election, and we'll continue to see how that plays out as the new administration in 2025 starts to evidence any regulations or other things that will impact the market. So we will continue to keep you appraised on those fronts and manage the portfolio accordingly, with safety, of course, being the first and foremost priority.
So I would just point out that the reduction in the federal funds overnight trade rate will impact the LGIP investment faster than it will impact the discretionary or the non-discretionary investments. And so we've seen over the last few months that the LGIP rate of return has dropped. But it's still an inverted curve, and we're receiving a higher yield right now on the LGIP than we are on this investment. But that's strategically.
Okay.
Very good.
So any questions?
Any questions from
For
the?
us?
I have a question. Could you, on page 13, it looks like we lost $2 million from the federal agency. What's that?
Oh, great question. So on page 13, what this demonstrates is that there is a security that matured in the portfolio. So for example, we had some securities that matured in the portfolio with federal agencies and commercial paper. We bought U.S. Treasuries, and actually we bought 2 million of Treasuries and had other 2 mature. And then some funds over the quarter were left uninvested until we had permission to reinvest those with the permission of staff. So there was no loss in the portfolio. That's a great observation. It was just that we kept those funds in cash until we identified a new purchase that was then reviewed and approved by staff.
Okay.
So it's just timing with the quarter end.
Okay.
Correct.
I would also remind you that November, the month that we are currently in, is when we collect 90 to 95% of our property tax assessment, and our assessment this year is a little over 14 million. So we will have some additional funds that we will look to invest. We do have some room in the LGIP, but we'll probably increase the non-discretionary investments as well with those funds to keep the cash flow.
How has that changed from last year?
It's up, I believe, about 21%.
And that reflects the uncertainty around trying to gauge the development and the growth impact from a property tax standpoint. It's going to continue to fluctuate and be difficult to predict over the next couple of years, given how the timing of the county assesses properties to when they come online and when they pay property taxes, and what the valuations are.
Yeah, it's about $800,000 more than what we budgeted, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Very good.
So
Very good.
we will continue to be conservative in our budgeting of.
So I happen to have seen in the last week, it looks like Bitcoin and Tesla has really taken off.
Not investing in Bitcoin and Tesla. Sorry.
Smart.
I really wanted to. There's a cryptocurrency that's got a cute dog on it that I really like.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much
Yeah.
for the report.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks.
Okay, that is last of our presentations. Then, moving on, I do not have any communications. Business from the public. This allows the public to introduce items for the council consideration that is not already scheduled on the agenda. If anyone has something to say, please come up and try and limit time to 3 minutes. Please give us a name.
My name is Claire Rapplier, and I live here in Woodburn.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you, council members, for allowing me to address you today. Our city is home to a large and vibrant immigrant population, many of whom have been here for years, contributing to our economy, our culture, and the fabric of our community. These individuals are essential to what makes Woodburn thrive. The Trump administration has promised to carry out the largest mass deportation operation in American history. This plan would target millions of undocumented immigrants, including those who have lived in the U.S. for decades, those who have U.S.-born children, and those who contribute significantly to the economy. The scale of this operation is staggering. Mass deportation would be both a humanitarian and financial disaster. It would leave millions of U.S. citizens in poverty. Additionally, approximately 1.2 million mortgages held by households with undocumented immigrants would be at risk, jeopardizing our housing market. A massive deportation program would reduce the U.S. gross domestic product by 1.4% in the first year, and over the next 10 years, the cumulative reduction could reach $4.7 trillion. This is a massive blow to our economy that would affect everyone, not just undocumented immigrants. It would harm local businesses, disrupt supply chains, and negatively impact the workforce, especially in sectors like agriculture, construction, and hospitality, where many immigrants play a crucial role. Do I have a little bit more time?
Go ahead.
Okay. While a slim majority of Americans may support mass deportation in theory, polling reveals that when people are given more information, most do not support deporting individuals who have lived in the U.S. for years, who have U.S.-born children, or who are integral to the local economy. For example, only 24% of voters support deporting someone who has lived in the U.S. for 15 years and has U.S.-born children. Similarly, only 24% support deporting someone who owns a small business. This tells us that when voters understand the broader consequences, they are less likely to support such sweeping, harmful policies. I am here to ask the City of Woodburn to take a proactive step by hosting informational meetings for our community. These meetings could provide clear, factual information about the true implications of mass deportation, not just socially, but economically as well. We need to share with our residents how this policy could decimate our local community, our local economy, displace families, and create unnecessary hardship for countless individuals who contribute to our community. These meetings could also provide guidance on how to support those impacted by these harmful policies. By opening this dialogue and ensuring our community is fully informed, we can stand together to make sure that Woodburn remains a place that values fairness, family, and economic prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
sharing your thoughts. I think this is an issue that not only Woodburn, but a lot of cities are going to be looking at, and we will be addressing in the near future.
And I think it's safe to say that we are a sanctuary state, so I'm hoping that that remains the same. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else that has any comments? Then moving on to the consent agenda. These items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine, may be adopted by one motion. Any item can be removed for discussion at the request of a council member. Can we please have the city recorder read the items aloud that are on the consent agenda?
The items on the consent agenda are as follows. Woodburn City Council minutes of October 28th, 2024. Woodburn City Council executive session minutes of October 28th, 2024. And building activity for October 2024.
Any comments, questions that entertain a motion?
I move to accept the consent agenda.
All in favor of that, signify with an aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We do not have any table business. We do not have a public hearing. Next, moving on to general business, and we're looking at the authorization of a peer court program with Boys and Girls Club of Salem, Marion, and Polk counties. Yes.
All right, good evening, City Council, Mayor and City Council. Jesse Cuomo, Community Services Director. Zariah Uter was going to be with me today, but she's under the weather, so unfortunately I'm flying solo. So before you tonight is a recommendation for the authorization of an agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of Marion and Polk County to operate a teen court. They do operate one in the Salem area, and in addition to that is also giving the city administrator the authorization to enter into an IGA with the Woodburn School District, who is helping support the program financially. As many of you know and have been privy to, kind of following the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a significant increase in youth-related negative activity identified by the school district as well as our Woodburn Police Department, with an uptick in graffiti, so other types of school suspensions, vandalism, etc. And so following that concern, the city established a small committee to find ways to address this. It was involving many community partners as well as Woodburn Police Department, Woodburn School District, and others. Following a few different sessions there, the city council took a stance to establish a position within the city, which ended up being our community education and outreach coordinator position, which was position was created in June, and we were able to fill it with Zariah in November. And so she's been doing significant work working with the school district and other partners to do a lot of community education. But one of the key components that we spoke about in the initial sessions was the idea of a peer court program. And so it really was of a lot of interest from the group at the table. The police department has interest, has seen this successful in other communities, as well as when we spoke at the school board, there was a lot of interest in this program as well. It really, what the program really targets is we're looking at youth offenders that are 12 to 17. And so they're first-time offenders, so this isn't for repeat offenders, and they're low-level nonviolent crimes. And so it really allows an opportunity for a youth that kind of missteps, does something like graffiti or something, kind of steps out of line, but they have an opportunity to get that expunged from their record. And so the way the process works is, so they will go, it won't change anything in which our police are doing locally. They will cite how they would cite at any other time. So they're gonna, if there's an infraction, they'll cite it just as they will. Then it goes to the juvenile department, who then basically will look at these cases individually and say, well, that is a case that could be sent to peer court. At that point, that referral goes to a Boys and Girls Club staff, who then will work with the youth and the family to do an intake appointment. If the youth chooses or the family chooses that they're not willing to take responsibility for the crime, it is referred back to Marion County. But if they're willing to take responsibility of the crime or act that was committed, then they can start through the process of going through peer court. So what it will be exactly that. It will be a court of their peers. The parent is mandatory to be at the intake, or their guardian, parent or guardian, at the intake meeting, as well as at the actual court session itself. And so once they actually, they go through their whole actual criminal report in the intake with the parent, and sometimes it is my understanding that is sometimes even the first time that the parent has heard most of the details of what has happened. And so it can be eye-opening for everyone at the table. And so following that, then they'll go in front of the court of their peers, kind of state their case. They do have to take ownership of what's happened, and they have to apologize to their actual parent or guardian in that session. And then the actual peer court, in partnership with legal professionals, volunteering their time. So there is one that is supporting the peer court, and then there is another one who is also acting as the judge. And so the peer court will hear the hear the case. They will go back into, it's going to be held ideally here in the council chambers. They'll go back into the small conference room, deliberate, and then come up with different sanctions depending on what the crime was. And again, these are low-level offenses, so sanctions can range from anything from classic community service types of items to actually doing college tours, because opening up, just other opportunities to a youth who maybe doesn't feel like they even have opportunities can be enlightening and change their path a bit. There is also, other pieces as well, workforce readiness workshops as well. So the Boys and Girls Club does have their Training Teens for Tomorrow program that they have workshops, so the youth can actually attend those. It can also be as simple as a letter, depending on what the peer court decides. And if they go through this process, they actually have to sit on the peer court as well, so it kind of the program kind of self-feeds itself with jurors as it goes. And so they have to serve a term or a session on the peer court itself. And several in the Salem program actually want to stick around for a couple rounds. They actually tend to learn and enjoy wanting to be a part of the process. And it's kind of nice to see peers because they kind of can read each other as teen on teen can read each other a little better than I think maybe adult to teen. And so just seeing that accountability piece. And so once they've gone through this whole process, and then it goes back to Marion County, and then it can be expunged from the record. So with all the amazing work that Zariah is currently doing with the education and outreach and all the partnerships we've been doing with the school district and the additional after-school programs with satellite gaming, doing e-gaming, and offering other programmatic opportunities, and we look at this as being a really nice addition to those kind of like prevention intervention pieces. We don't want to see it get to the suppression kind of pieces. You look at this kind of work that is purely end of the road, and we want to see if we can redirect youth as we're going. So we're excited about this opportunity. Again, this was approved in the fiscal year 24-25 budget. And so the city is providing $45,000 of ARPA funding. So we're still somehow using that fund. It's still around. We're still finding ways to allocate. And then the school district is putting in an additional $45,000. When we initially brought this program, we knew that if we didn't at least try to establish it for 2 years, it didn't make a whole lot of sense because it is going to take a little bit of time to stand it up. They're hoping to start it as early as next week, but we'll have to see how that all comes together. But if we didn't have that consistency, we didn't want to kind of start a program, have it run for 8-9 months, and then kind of fall off. So we thought if we could get a 2-year real solid pilot program going, and the school district came to the table with half of that funding as well to provide this funding. So I'm really excited about the potential of this program, and I'm happy to answer any questions best I can.
I've got a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many students have graduated, like say from Salem or in Polk County?
I don't have that number. That's why I wish Zariah was here. Zariah actually used to oversee the program. It's the recidivismship rate is extremely high, of their success rate. There's very few that kind of fall out of the program. I know that. I want to say it's like 85% go all the way through the program and get their crime expunged. So it's a small percentage that kind of loop back and say, I don't want to do this anymore, or don't come to their court date or things like that. So it is a small percentage.
Okay, and the other question is, I know that the court will be held in the chambers here. And can the public come in, or is it a closed?
I think it's more closed. I have never actually, been that. I think from the privacy of the family, I think that would be out of respect. But I honestly don't know that for sure.
Jesse,
but I don't.
It's closed because there's juveniles in the.
Yeah, I thought so, but I just haven't actually been in there. So.
It is a nice extension, though, of the programmatic approach the City Council laid out in terms of addressing the needs that we saw in the youth in our community beginning directly after the pandemic. And what's also nice about the ARPA allocation is it's another example of the city being able to leverage maximum community investment in ARPA funding, where we lay out $45,000 but attract an additional $45,000 investment to maximize its impact in the community.
And in addition to that, the thought of actually establishing an additional city staff to run the program would have been probably at least double that too on an annual basis to have internal staff do it. So to be able to partner with an organization that's doing it and doing it successful in Salem seems like a good fit for us.
Any other questions, comments?
So, Jesse, the recidivism right? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Is low, correct?
They're going through in a positive way. So committing in a crime or to not completing the program is about 15% don't complete the program. To actually going through the program and succeeding, and the last numbers I saw was 85%. And I guess I could put Yanira on the spot too. She used to oversee that program a couple of years ago too. But
So do you know how many people have gone through the program and then went out and committed more crimes?
I don't know that number off the top of my head. I could definitely look it up and get it back to you if it's something you're interested in. So.
I think that's just what a lot of people want to know is that people completing the program, that's great. But if they go out and
Do it again.
do it
Yeah.
again, it's
Well,
like,
that is kind of back to one of the initial points. They wouldn't be able to do the peer court program again, right? At that point, they are going to be tried as a juvenile fully through the juvenile department. So it's kind of like, hey, this is your opportunity. Yeah, it's a one shot. So it's your first time offenders that are going to be using the peer court program.
Generally speaking, I think it's seen as a more productive, less costly approach than just keeping kids in the juvenile correction system the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So the recidivism rate in the juvenile corrections program versus this as an entry point into the program would be the comparison we'd want to make, and whether or not people wind back up in the state system versus this more localized approach to try to redirect kids early on.
Absolutely. And Troy Craig, the juvenile director, is really excited about us bringing this program into the Woodburn area as well.
So they're the ones that refer everybody to the peer court.
Correct.
And so they will have an idea on if somebody's in the system, they will be on top of that for years going forward on the background of that individual.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's the advantage, and it's advantage to even from our operations and our Woodburn PD. It's not another administrative piece for them to think about. They just do what they do, and then the juvenile department does what they do, and with the referrals. So.
and do we know what kind of offenses or crimes this fits into?
It's going to be low levels, like I said, graffiti, petty theft, no violent crimes, non-violent crimes. So it's going to be, I don't have the whole list, but kind of those types of items.
Is petty theft the same thing as shoplifting?
I would say I'm not the law professional, but I would say so.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Minor in possession?
There is, yes. So MIPs is one of the ones as well. I think it would maybe escalate if it was like operating vehicle under influence or something. I don't think that might be different, but MIPs are one that is commonly seen.
So the cost of $45,000, what is that going towards?
So that's going to be provided to the Boys and Girls Club for their staffing of the program over the next 2 years. And so that is going to basically, and any programmatic supplies they need to as well. So currently they're running, prior to this, they were running the program with a half-time person down in Salem area. This will allow them to get that person to a full-time, creating some consistency within the program, but also allowing that person who's already operating a teen court to just transfer those skills here. And that would also may go into other types of things, such as making sure they can get to their college tours and things like that. They'll use it for programmatic things as well as salary and payroll for the staffing.
And I'm assuming we've already been dealing with the school district, and they are familiar with this agreement. And
Yep.
are ready
Yeah,
to
they've
go
been extremely supportive of this. Like I said, when we presented to the school board, we didn't get an official recommendation, but when we did our first presentation about Zariah's new position, we spent about 20 to 25 minutes on this, and that's not even why we were there. But the school board was extremely interested in this program, and then they did build it into this fiscal year budget to give half of that money, like $22,500, this fiscal year, and then they're budgeting it for next year as well to put their $45,000 in.
I see there's a lot of conditions and sanctions that an individual needs to go through to graduate from this program. I'm a little curious about the engagement in an empathy activity.
So
Any idea what that might constitute?
Yeah, that's a little bit of soft language, but that's really engaging with either the person the crime was committed or writing kind of so they have an understanding of the impact of what they did on that person or on that business or whatever it is. It's understanding your true impact of what you did and why that was wrong, and having that. And again, they'll work with the Boys and Girls Club as the case manager as well through these pieces also, to really give them that full understanding of, hey, yeah, you stole this theft, but do you realize this is a small, single person owned business, and what that means to, and taking food off their plate at their house, really talking about the true impact of what their crime is that they've committed.
Boys and Girls Club hosted greeters at the chamber a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking to the director of the Boys and Girls Club. She was extremely ecstatic about this agreement, and looking forward to working with the city. So. Yeah, I think it'll be a really good expansion. I was really happy to work with Sue on this project, and hopefully it gets off the ground and running pretty well, and we'll go from there. Good. Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. Then I would entertain a motion.
I move to authorize, or approve the authorization of the peer court program agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of Salem, Marion, Polk counties, and the intergovernmental agreement with the Woodburn School District for peer court program funding, and move for the city administrator to sign that agreement.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved.
Everyone.
There
Very
we go.
excited.
Take that. Yes. Very excited about this. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed with the same. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to other business. We don't have any, so we do have a planning commission land use action, which we are going to get a brief report on from Chris.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Chris Kirk, Community Development Director. So on October 24th, our Planning Commission approved a conditional use application for service station, a couple of office buildings for a property at the corner of Oregon Way and 214. And ordinarily, that's when I sort of discuss the project a bit and give you an opportunity to, whether or not to call up that Planning Commission decision. But I have an update that's happened just this afternoon. I received an appeal application from a party that had standing on the project, an opposing party. And what that means is, instead of having it get called up, staff will go forward, schedule a formal public hearing before the City Council. It'll probably take a couple of months before it can get to you. We'll do notice out to everyone with standing. We're going to hold a formal, complete quasi-judicial hearing with the City Council on that item. Going to take testimony from everyone who wants to come in, and the decision will ultimately be yours on that appeal application. That's sort of the most recent update. And when this has happened before, I try to advise the council not to have a whole lot of discussion, even in this forum on the project, because it's really important that all the discussion and anything that might possibly lead to a decision on the matter, or anything that might inform your decision on the matter, is held actually in a public hearing quorum, in a quorum meeting, which again will probably be in January. And between now and then, just if you can, avoid any ex parte contact with any parties outside, if you can. And if you do, just make note of them and make sure you disclose those at the hearing that we're going to have.
Thank you. Any questions, Chris?
I do have a question, and you may explain this when you come before in a month or so, but it's an overreaching question. How is this different than the first time when we said no?
It is, and that's a big part of the discussion. I can give a very kind of a real quick summary of it, and we will discuss that in a lot of detail about how it's changed. The most basic change has to do with the access, vehicular access into and out of the property. The initial approval or initial application about 2 years ago on this site included a two-way in and out access on 214, so you could exit this property onto 214. With the new application, after the applicant had meetings with ODOT, they've limited that access to an entry only off 214. So if you're on the property, you can't exit except onto Oregon Way. You couldn't make a right out onto 214 as you could in the past. And that was one of the main reasons it was denied previously.
Are you telling me that the community that lives close by they're okay with it now?
Well, I'm not saying that at all. There was a lot of testimony on this. I expect to have more. And for just so that it's clear for you, the record that we've been assembling on this is pretty thick. We had 2 public hearings on the matter. I've received testimony from, I'm going to guess, between 40 and 60 people probably. All of that will be provided to the city council. So you'll have a chance to see all the testimony that's come in on both sides of the issue. Sure.
Hey, Chris,
Yes.
one quick question. I don't think it'll get you in trouble, but if it does, just don't answer me. Just nod your head and I won't be able to see that. To have when you say somebody has standing or doesn't have standing, I'm assuming the people who apply and want to build this thing have standing. So if somebody's opposing it, how do you get standing to oppose something? Just by showing up in the beginning of the process?
It is standing sort of a term of art that Oregon land use is very specific about. You have to, quote, appear during the hearing process. You don't have to be in the room, so if you submit a letter, if you send us an email and say that you'd like to, and obviously if you show up. So all those people have standing, and which is the reason when they come up, you always hear us say, please give your name and address. That's why it's so important. And we have them fill out the cards so that we can give them the notice of the decision so they could appeal. And in this case, because it has been appealed, we have an appeal application that's been submitted on that decision. We're going to send the notice of the city council meeting once we get the date confirmed to everybody who has standing. In other words, everybody who testified previously or submitted testimony is going to get a notice about the hearing, so they can all come back.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Sure.
So again, those counselors that will be with us next year, plan on a extended meeting in January to go over this. Thank you, Chris. Moving on, then we have the city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that I've reported this to the council already, but just to remind the community that our acting police chief is Jason Milliken. He's here in the audience tonight. And that we are contemplating a recruitment process that will occur, but probably not for several months. You know, Jason and I, the chief and I, are taking the opportunity to discuss the future direction and opportunities at the Woodburn Police Department, and we kind of want to work through that process before we get into any kind of a recruitment. But that will happen at some point, and people should know that we've got good capacity and depth, and that the police department has been functioning just fine under the current acting chief in the last 2 weeks. So if you have any questions about how that's going, feel free to reach out to either myself or Chief Milliken. And then just to follow up a bit on what the mayor said, I have been asked about the status of the city's $15 million lottery bond grant that was awarded to the city via a legislative action, the Oregon legislature, that was to complement the bond should it have passed. And the city was going to match that with $5 million, bringing the total match to the table to the bond to $60 million. That is a good question to ask, and I intend to report back to the city council on the status of that $15 million grant. It was subject to litigation a few years ago, some of you will recall, and the legal counsel that managed that litigation on behalf of the city is going to provide the city a legal opinion about the use of that money going forward and what it may or may not be subject to under state rules. So stay tuned for that. You know, we would like to continue to utilize that money to the community benefit if possible. And then finally, I guess that's all I have, Mr. Mayor, unless there's any questions.
Anything to announce on Young Street yet?
Thank you for asking that. The city is moving forward. We finished some of our due diligence on that site. The city has completed a level 1 environmental assessment. We're now moving on to a level 2. Apparently there was a gas station there because of course there was. Seems like there were I can't believe there are gas stations everywhere in this town at one time, Mr. Mayor.
That's true.
And we never miss an opportunity as a city to pull underground tanks out of the ground. I'll tell you that. We're going for some kind of record. I think we're up to 13 now, maybe 14. So We'll continue with that work. We finished a required appraisal on that property. That appraisal came back today. The appraisal was $3.3 million.
Fantastic.
$3.2 million. You may remember the purchase price is 1.3. So, we're still completing our due diligence on that site. I think we'll be done probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It looks like we're going to be able to complete that transaction. The city has the purchase money available. In fact, I was asking Tony just right after the financial presentation. I was thinking that $2 million I saw in there was part of the money that we moved around for the acquisition of the property, but it came from somewhere else. And once that transaction is complete, we'll come back to the city council and talk about partnerships and moving forward. Along with this property will come the architectural and engineering design and the entitlement to the use of those documents for a 98-unit complex that was proposed for that site. The city would like to partner with a nonprofit to turn that into a managed affordable housing project that the city ultimately will not own or operate. It will be operated under the purview of a nonprofit, which is pretty exciting. I think I've answered this question. That project was going to move forward, and it was the city's opportunity to acquire that project. It would have normally been a market rate project and ensure that it was dedicated towards accommodating the need for affordable housing. So I know some people don't want more housing, but this project was going to happen with or without the city. The question is only going to be whether it was going to be affordable or unaffordable housing. Or, I'm sorry, market rate housing. Unaffordable housing, so.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And I got a laugh in the audience. I do appreciate the laugh in the audience. Most of my jokes don't get laughs or even smiles anymore, Mr. Mayor, but thank you for asking about that. It's getting close.
Yep.
Any other questions I can answer?
It's a good update.
Great update.
Yeah,
good.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to council reports. Councilor Schaub?
Oh, okay, thank you. First of all, I want to tell everybody to have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I think we need to be thankful for what we have here and now. And Claire, I appreciate what you're coming up to speak to the council, and for all those people that are listening. It's a concern, and you know that Woodburn is always concerned with its citizens, and like I say, I appreciate that. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. Councilor Morales?
No, I don't have anything to report.
Councilor Cornwell?
Just want to echo what Councilor Schaub just said. I'm right there with you.
Agreed. Councilor Cantu?
I'll do the same. Claire, that was great, and we're here and support all of our residents, citizens.
Councilor Morris?
I'll echo everybody else's sentiments and wish everybody happy holidays. The one thing about the bond that I kind of realized as I was watching social media, which is just a painful thing to say out loud nowadays, was the fact that a lot of people, a lot of our citizens, don't understand how government is financed and where their taxpayer dollars go. I don't spend a lot of time staring at my property tax statement because it makes me sad. But when we were talking about raising money for a community center, people were like, hey, we really need more money for schools. And I agree with that. Even though my kids are long gone from schools, we need to invest in our schools. So I think the thing that, at least myself, being involved in city government for a long time on the school board and stuff and going through all those budget sessions, you really get to understand how things work. But I think your average citizen most of the time doesn't have the time to learn it and understand it. But nowadays you really see people expressing that they just don't understand it, or they're saying things that just don't make any sense. Yeah. That, we need to spend more money on X, Y, or Z when it has nothing to do with the city. So,
Potholes.
And I don't disagree with potholes. We need to spend money on potholes, and we do as a city. We haven't seen the core samples in a while, which is always a great exercise for new councilors, about how to take care of your roads. And I've lectured other places about road care because I've got that experience. But I think as the city moves forward and we look at getting more bonds because it'll come around again, I'm sure, we need to do a better job of educating people in those details, and that's hard nowadays if it's not in a 30-second TikTok, which I'm not sure if you could do budgeting. Scott, that's a challenge for you.
I need more than 30 seconds.
I just,
You can do it.
stepping back from the issue and really looking at what people's comments were, I agree with most of them. You know, people don't want higher taxes, people want their money invested wisely, but most people just don't understand, because government all looks like government, all looks the same to people. So I think as the council moves forward, well, without me, which is great, that's gonna be a great council, I just think keep that in mind. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Thank you, Councilor Morris. I will miss your insight, and you will be missed.
One more meeting.
I thought this was the last one. I texted Scott, I was like, I'm done.
Bad news for you, Counselor. At least one more.
I've gotten more out of serving on the council than
I agree with you on the cost of bond. There was a lot of false information that was out there, and people did not understand the true cost of it. They would go back and forth. We tried to rectify and clarify it, but it still was difficult. But, yeah, maybe things we can learn and try and do better too. So, thank you. With that, I have nothing to add, except we do have an executive session. And I would like someone to make a motion, please, to proceed into executive session based on the authority of ORS 192.660-2-I.
So moved.
Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify with an aye.
Aye.
Okay. We will go into, let's go into the small conference room. Should be able to hold us.
Somebody was saying we need to build a new police station. I'm like, I don't know if we paid for our new police station yet.
So what we will do is invite Mackenzie and Scott in after we've discussed things first. We're getting on the small conference room.